Hey, what's up? You're listening to Daway English Podcast. This is Intermediate English Course, Session number 2, Frequency Adverbs. So, hello. How are you? I hope you're fine. Are you happy? Yes. Okay, you need to have a good spirit, right? So welcome to Daway again. This is the second lesson of your intermediate English course, Curso Inglés Intermedio. And, in the first episode, you learned how to say the things you like. Like, I like reading. The things you don't like. I don't like pizza, imagine. Or if you can't stand something, like no soporto, I can't stand flying by plane, or I hate running. So you learned to express preferences. And today, you're going to learn how to express the activities you do, the hobbies or the activities you perform, and how often you do those activities. How often, okay? Frequency. La frecuencia. So the first thing you need is frequency adverbs, obviously. And you've got, there are two separate groups of frequency adverbs. Hay dos grupos de adverbio de frecuencia. The first one, you've got it on the blog. The first one is the one-word adverbs. Adverbios de una sola palabra. And on the blog, you've got on the post, you've got a list, okay, from less frequency to more frequency. So the first one is never, okay? Never, ever, ever, okay? Never, like nunca, never. Hardly ever is casi nunca. I hardly ever find, a lion on the streets, hardly ever, like, never, obviously. Or you've got rarely, okay? Raramente. De uvas veras, okay? Rarely, like, I don't know. I rarely run a marathon, okay? I rarely run a marathon. No suelo correr maratones. Okay, rarely. Sometimes, that's the next one. Sometimes, algunas veces. Sometimes, 50-50. The next one is often, okay, often, con frecuencia, a menudo, often. I often read, or I often play tennis, imagine. Then you've got usually, usualmente, con un poquito más frecuencia, usually. And then you have normally, when you say normally, it means you do it on a regular basis. I normally go to work, that's quite normal, isn't it? Or always, siempre, that's a maximum, okay? I always go to bed at 12 o'clock, okay? Or I always have food, for lunch, obviously. Always, siempre. Okay, so those are the one-word adverbs, okay? Los de una sola palabra. And I know there is an exception. I know you noticed an exception. The exception is hardly ever. Hardly ever is actually two words, okay? It's got two words, but it's an exception and you have to include it in this group, okay? So que hardly ever, casi nunca, es una excepción. Tiene que ir con este grupo. So you use these adverbs, okay, one-word adverbs, and hardly ever, you use them between the subject and the main verb, entre el sujeto y el verbo. So we say, I often play football. I often play football. Okay, you don't say, often I play football. No. You say, I often play football, between the subject and the verb. Or you say, I hardly ever run a marathon. Or I sometimes eat fish. Or, for example, you never play tennis. Oh, you never play tennis. You never come. Nunca vienes. or you always read the same book. You always read the same book. Okay, so between the subject and the verb. And when I say between the subjects, I mean between the subjects and the main verb, el verbo principal. Why? ¿Por qué? Because sometimes, if you have the negative, okay, the present simple negative, you have don't, imagine, don't play, okay, no juego, I don't play. So the adverb, this group, okay, del primer grupo de adverbios, this adverb goes between the subject and the main verb, which is play, not the auxiliary, okay? If you have the sentence, I don't play football, the main verb is play. So the adverb goes between don't and play. I don't often play football. I don't usually play basketball. You don't normally come. Normalmente no vienes. You don't normally come. So we use the adverb between the auxiliary and the main verb. Good. And for questions, we use the same. Okay, you have a normal question like, do you play tennis? And we put the adverb between the subject and the main verb. Do you always play tennis? ¿Siempre juegas al tenis? Do you sometimes have sushi? Or do you often go to school? Do you often go to school? Oh yes, I do. Okay. Do you often go to school? So that's the first group of adverbs. Okay. Some of them, like for example, sometimes, you can say sometimes at the beginning of a sentence, and this is correct too. So you can say sometimes, comma, con coma, sometimes, comma, I go to the park. Okay, so in this case, you can use sometimes at the beginning of a sentence. If that's alright, yeah. So that's the first group, right? Now you need the second group of adverbs, and these adverbs are two or more words adverbs. Okay, los que ya tienen más de una palabra. So we've got once a week, okay, una vez a la semana. Be careful. Notice the structure. We say once, una vez, and then we say a week. We don't say once in the week, once at the week. We say once a week. Once a day, una vez al día. Once a month, once a year. Okay? That's for one single time, para una sola vez, once. Then we say twice. Okay? Twice a week. Dos veces a la semana. Twice a year. Twice a month. Twice a decade. Dos veces cada década. Twice a decade. Okay? Twice a week. Like think twice. There's a famous song, a very, very famous song by Bob Dylan. Don't think twice, it's alright. Don't think twice, it's alright. And now we've got once and twice. And from twice on, a partir de twice, de dos veces, we say the number, like for example 3, the word times, tres veces, 3 times a week, 3 times a month, 3 times a year. Or for example, I read 24 times a week, 24 veces a la semana, 24 times, okay? Le ponemos la S a time, times, veces. Now we've got every day, every day, day in, day out, every day. I go to school every day. Then we have every year, todos los años, every month, todos los meses, okay? Then we have on Mondays, los lunes, okay? On Mondays. Or on Tuesdays, or on Saturdays, okay? And if we want to specify, for example, in the morning of a Monday, okay? La mañana de un lunes, es decir, los lunes por la mañana, we say on Monday mornings. On Monday mornings. Or we say on Tuesday afternoons. On Tuesday afternoons. Los martes por la tarde. On Tuesday afternoons. Sorry. Okay. For the weekends, we say at the weekend. Just, easy. At the weekend. I don't go to school at the weekend. Then we have the word most. Most means, la mayoría. So most Tuesdays, la mayoría de martes, most Tuesdays I go to the park. But not always, but most Tuesdays I go to the park. Or most years, la mayoría de los años, casi todos los años, most years I go to, somewhere. So this is easy, right? You only have to remember that this second group goes at the end of the sentence. It always goes at the end of the sentence. So we say, I play basketball once a week. Juego al básquet una vez a la semana. I play basketball once a week. Or I go to the cinema every day. Voy al cine todos los días. No, that's not true, okay? That's not real life. I go to the cinema, once a year or once a month. Okay? So just remember these adverbs from the second group, they always go at the end of the sentence. Siempre van al final de la frase, de la oración. So, I go to work every day. I go to work every day. I have breakfast every day. Or I ride my bicycle. Imagine on Thursday morning. Los jueves por la mañana. I ride my bicycle on Thursday mornings. Okay, always at the end. It always goes at the end. Or, I wake up at 9 most days. Me despierto a las 9 la mayoría de los días. I wake up at 9 most days. Good. Now, if we want to ask someone about frequency, okay, si le preguntamos a alguien por la frecuencia, we need to say, we can say, we've got two options. The first one is, how often, con qué frecuencia, how often do you eat tortilla? Okay, Spanish tortilla. How often do you eat tortilla? Or, what time do you, a qué hora, okay, what time do you play basketball? Okay, what time do you play basketball? I play basketball at 5 o'clock on Tuesday mornings. Remember, if we want to answer with the specific time, cuando respondemos con la hora, we say the preposition at. So I play football at 5 o'clock on Tuesdays. Okay? So, yeah, just remember the preposition at for the time. And if the question is how often, con qué frecuencia, pues respondes normal. How often do you drive? I drive twice a week. I drive twice a week. What time do you go to bed? I normally go to bed at 2 o'clock. Okay? You can mix. Yeah. You can use one word adverbs. O sea, podéis mezclar los adverbios de frecuencia con la respuesta. I normally go to bed at 2 o'clock. Or I never go to bed at 1. Most days, la mayoría de los días, I go to bed at blah, blah, blah. Okay? So we've got how often and what time. And we have this the normal structure of a present simple question. Okay? So don't get confused. This is not strange. It's a normal question. Es una pregunta normal. Do you play football? But before the question, we put the particle. Do you play football? How often do you play football? Okay. Do you go to bed? What time do you go to bed? Okay. Good. So yeah, now you've got the first group of frequency adverbs. Okay, like one word adverbs. El primer grupo. Never, rarely, hardly ever, sometimes, often, usually, normally, always. And you have the second group of adverbs, el segundo grupo. Once a week, twice a day, twice a month, 3 times a day, 45 times a month, and most weekends, la mayoría de fines de semana, on Tuesdays, on Monday mornings, etc. And the question, finally, you have the questions. How often do you? What time do you? Okay, good. And now, just as I did in the other episode, como hicimos la clase anterior, I can give you some extra expressions, natural expressions a lot of natives use when they speak. These expressions are, quite handy because they are colloquial or informal or commonly used. So some of these expressions are from time to time, de vez en cuando. From time to time, I go to the cinema. I go to the cinema from time to time, okay? Day after day, día tras día, esto tiene una connotación, it's got a negative connotation. It's not negative, but if you say day after day, you want to emphasize it's something repetitive, So you say, I don't know, I am tired day after day, or I have to work day after day, imagine. Or you say, day in, day out, todos los días, sin excepción, okay? Day in, day out, I study day in, day out, every single day. Or you can say every other day, día sí, día no, How often do you do a sport? Every other day, when I have time. Every other day, normally, Okay? So these are really, really cool to use. You can use these expressions and they are really, really good. So now, don't forget, now you have the theory, the grammar, and you have the podcast. So don't forget to practice. Don't be timid. No seas tímido. Don't be timid. Don't be shy. Speak by yourself, okay? Habla solo, como los locos. Speak by yourself. Practice, loud, en voz alta. Try to repeat all that I said in the podcast. Try to look for examples, okay? Go to Google and you can say, how often do you, okay? And you will find a lot of examples on Facebook, on Google, on blogs, on Twitter, people, real people asking, making questions, okay? Or you can say, you can listen to the radio, okay? You can go to Vaughan Radio, or you can go to, I don't mind, you can use Talk Radio Europe, you can go to any radio station and try to listen and find a real example. Okay, you listen to the radio for 20 minutes until you find a real example. Oh, yeah. Ha dicho how often. Yeah, perfect, So when you find it in a real listening, you will memorize it, okay? It'll get stored in your brain. So try to look for examples. Try to repeat. Try to speak. And, as an extra, as a novelty, como novedad, once we have, 4 or 5 lessons, I will upload some exercises so you can practice. I will upload a test or something so you can put into practice what you learned in these sessions. Voy a intentar subir ejercicios para que puedas practicar, okay? So you can assess yourself. You can do a test. So, yeah, I hope you learned. Espero que hayas aprendido. I hope you learned. I hope you enjoyed the class. And have a nice day, okay? Have a perfect day. See you around, okay? Cheers.